Welcome to the Orgasm Hour live Q&A. I'm Dr. Suzanne Mulvehill, clinical sexologist and orgasmologist, and I'm here with you today to go over a topic about how to introduce a vibrator to your partner. And we're going to go into the research about vibrators, what the research shows, how many women use vibrators? Are they helpful? Are they used during partnered sex? These are some of the questions that we are going to answer today. And before we get started, I want to start with what prompted this particular topic. And I'm going to start by reading to you a post that I saw on Reddit 23 days ago. In fact, it's on a Reddit thread called Becoming Orgasmic that has about 50,000 men and women on that particular site. It's typically women that post about orgasm difficulty. However, I have seen men post about orgasm difficulty there as well. So this particular, the title of this post was called, "How do I convince my boyfriend to let me use a vibrator?" I'm going to share it with you because I have it right here on the screen. So let's take a look at this. Here we go. Okay. It's called, "How do I convince my boyfriend to let me use a vibrator?" Okay, so here we go. I'm going to read it to you. I, 27-year-old female, have been with my boyfriend for 3 years, and he won't let me use a vibrator during sex. I know this is going to cause an uproar, but I've honestly accepted it for so long because he's Middle Eastern and a lot of things are taboo in his culture. And I think he genuinely feels emasculated at the thought of it. The question is, what can I do or say to break down the stigma and present it to him in a way that he will accept? He honestly doesn't even like it when I use it on my own when he's not there. I get extremely turned on and aroused with him. We have great chemistry and I love having sex with him, but something in my mind just blocks my orgasms about 98% of the time. It takes a long time for me to get there by him using his fingers on me, so I don't even like asking him to do that. The other option is for me to rub my clit during penetration, which works few and far between times because, again, I have a mental block and my hands get tired. I just don't know what to do at this point because I'm tired of faking it. Okay, so we're going to stop sharing that for just 1 second. And here's the first clue of introducing a vibrator to your partner: no faking orgasm. No faking orgasm. If you're faking orgasm, you're sending a message to your partner that whatever he or she is doing is actually working when it's truly not. So it is not creating a good connection that we already know through previous research and through the previous shows that I have presented here, that good communication and is a part of a good relationship, and it's part of a good experience in the bedroom with sex. So a couple of other comments. There were 92 comments to this woman's Reddit post. And the first one said, here it is. I'm going to share it with the screen with you because it's worth you seeing. The first comment was, "Step 1 is getting a new boyfriend." That's some overly controlling bullshit. And it's a small example of what will likely turn into more controlling behavior the longer you're together. Okay, that was the first comment. Here's the next comment, or another comment. "You have as much right to get an orgasm as your boyfriend does. And if you need a vibrator to get one, you use a vibrator. Tell him if you don't get an orgasm, he won't get one either. Either that or he can look for a new girlfriend. Don't ask, make a demand." Now, really, do we think we really need to make a demand to be able to use a vibrator? I mean, again, good communication. This next person wrote, "Stop faking it immediately." Sit him down and tell him what you've been doing and what you need to have a pleasurable experience. I mean, that's really it. What does she need to have a pleasurable experience? So, for men who are listening, and I spoke with a man this week that was one of the most interesting conversations I have ever had with a man who said, "What kind of safety, like, does a woman need? What kind of safety does she need in a relationship?" And I was like, I've never heard a man ask that question. So, gentlemen, for those of you who are listening or who may have felt emasculated by the fact that an orgasm is in the room, no, a vibrator is in the room, or that a woman wants to use a vibrator, it's shifting your focus, gentlemen, to what will enhance her experience while we're together. I mean, because if you can experience her orgasm, you're a lucky man or you're a lucky woman. You're a lucky partner to experience your woman's orgasm. So keep that in mind. And again, for those of you who may have women and men, whoever have the block that say, oh, my partner doesn't like this, or oh, I'm afraid to introduce it to my partner, realize that the whole theme is to enhance your sexual experience. So let's look at a few more comments, and welcome for those who have signed on. Welcome, and you're welcome to put comments in the chat, and know that they don't show up immediately. There's a little time delay with YouTube Live. So another 23 days ago, stop faking it immediately. Okay, we already talked about that one. And this was the OP. She said, the person who made the post, yes, I do understand that it is my fault and I take responsibility for faking it so much, feeding into his ego. And I will tell you right here that in the study by Kontula and Miettinen in 2017 in Finland, it was a longitudinal study, they were puzzled in their study to find out why women were focusing more on their partner's pleasure than their own. That was one of the conclusions. Why are women focused more on their partner's pleasure than their own? Why do you think that is? Well, this woman right here was faking her orgasm so much to feed his ego. And she says, I have struggled with very low self-esteem and self-hatred. How sad, really, my whole life, which I'm working very hard to fix through therapy and medication. It's just hard for me to stop accepting less than what I deserve. No one has to accept less than what they deserve. In fact, I shared with a woman today, this week, who posted on Reddit about how can she get safety in this relationship. And it was very clear from her post that there was no possibility of safety given what she wrote about the present relationship, that the way she was going to get safety was to leave it. So safety is the foundation of learning how to orgasm, of orgasm. Safety is the number one thing. The body and the mind need to feel safe. And you cannot fool your mind. You can't fool your body or your mind in any way and think, oh, I feel safe when there was domestic violence the day before, or there's controlling behavior, or there's betrayal and cheating. Your brain remembers all of that. So your orgasm can also be a barometer of the quality of the relationship. Does the relationship serve you and your wellness? That's a question to consider in any partnership at any given time. Okay, so she says, yes, that was her comment. And now we're going to move on to some other research. So guess how much, I did a little research on guess how much is spent on vibrators annually. And in the United States, I'll tell you. The global sex toy, now this is sex toys, this isn't just vibrators, this is sex toy. The global sex toy market is between $18 billion and $48 billion annually. That was in 2025 by two companies that do evaluations. Fortune Business placed it at 18.39 billion, and the US alone is at $10.6 billion in sex toys use. So how many women are using vibrators? Let's take a look. So this is a study we're going to take a look at from 2009, and it's right here. Very interesting study. It's called Prevalence and Characteristics of Vibrator Use by Women in the United States, and it's results from a national study. This was done by Deborah Herbenick, and she did another study that we're going to take a look at from 2011. And we're going to read through the abstract, and we'll see if anything else is interesting in here to relate to. We may not get more than the abstract, actually, because a lot of these journal articles are behind paywalls. So she says, the introduction to her study, although vibrators are commonly recommended by clinicians as adjunct to treatment for female sexual dysfunction and for sexual enhancement, little is known about their prevalence or correlates of use. Don't you just love research? I mean, research is so interesting. So the aim of the study was to determine the lifetime and recent prevalence of women's vibrator use during masturbation and partnered sex, and the correlates of use related to socio-demographic variables like age and health and sexual function. And they did this with 3,800 women who were between the ages of 18 and 60. They were invited to participate in a cross-sectional internet-based survey, and 2,056 women participated. So the main outcomes of the study measured the prevalence of vibrator use, the relationship between vibrator use and physical and psychological well-being, as assessed by the Disease Control and Prevention Healthy Days measure, and health promoting behaviors, the relationship between vibrator use and women's scores on the Female Sexual Function Index. Now, the Female Sexual Function Index is an index that measures the domains of sexual functioning for women, which include desire, arousal, orgasm, pain, and lubrication, the 5 domains, and an assessment of the frequency and the severity of side effects of using vibrators. Now, I will say there are women who have lost sensitivity from using vibrators. There are women who can only orgasm with a vibrator. And while that's not a problem, it only becomes a problem when we think it's a problem. There was a woman one time who came to this orgasm meditation group meeting that I was at in Delray Beach, Florida, and she was with her partner. And she said, and I think he brought her there, or they came together. But I just remember him saying, yeah, she can only she can only orgasm with the vibrator. And I remember her feeling her sense of shame about that. Like, wait a minute, there's no shame about being able to orgasm only with a vibrator? Like, I remember telling her, like, hey, you can orgasm. Like, up to 72% of premenopausal women have difficulty with orgasm. So just the fact that you can orgasm is already a huge plus. And I'll tell you something else. Having interviewed women for my dissertation study with and without orgasm difficulty, there's a misnomer that women should be able to orgasm in all different ways, through oral sex, through penetration, through genital stimulation, all these different ways that women are just supposed to be able to orgasm regardless. Now, that may be what it looks like in porn, that women can vibrate this way and that way and this way and that way. Well, I can tell you what, that the women that I interviewed who don't have a problem with orgasm, they have their favorite ways to orgasm. They have the ways that work for them. So, put this in the context of a man, okay? So if you were to say, okay, gentlemen, you know what? No stroking of the penis, and no, just touch the base. We don't need to stroke, the head of the penis. Just stroke the bottom of the penis. And we think a man's going to orgasm like that. That's kind of an equivalent of what we're asking women, or holding on to the gentleman's balls, and just saying, okay, we're just going to hold your balls and we're going to massage your balls, and we'd like you to orgasm like that. Maybe some men can do that, but the reality is probably most can't. So if you have ways that you know how to orgasm, ladies, be okay with it. Be okay with it. Seriously, because so many women end up getting in their mind that they have an orgasm problem, or there's something wrong with them, or they're broken. Those are the two most common things that I hear is, oh, I'm broken. or, oh, there's something wrong with me. No, nothing wrong with you. That's cultural messaging. And it's generational. So, all right, let's get back to the research. Okay, so she says here, let's look at the results. I wish I could make this a little bigger for you, but I can't, unfortunately, here. When we do a PDF, I can. So the results, the prevalence of women's vibrator use was found to be 52%. That's the majority of women. Vibrator use was significantly more likely to have a gynecologic exam. Vibrator users were significantly more likely to have had a gynecological exam in the past year. Okay. And it's good for us to have gynecological exams and to have performed genital self-examination during the previous month. Vibrator use was significantly related to several aspects of sexual function. Remember, we talked about the female sexual function index that measure these. So they were related to desire, arousal, lubrication, orgasm, pain, and overall function, with recent vibrator users scoring higher on most sexual function domains, indicating more positive sexual function. Well, there you go. There's the advantage right there. They have better sexual functioning using vibrators. Another good reason to bring a vibrator into the partnership. Most women, 71.5%, reported having never experienced genital symptoms associated with vibrator use. There were no significant associations between vibrator use and participant scores on I don't know what the CDC Healthy Days measure is, but whatever. The conclusion, vibrator use among women is common, associated with health promoting behaviors and positive sexual function, and rarely associated with side effects. Clinicians may find these data useful in responding to patients' sexual issues and recommending vibrator use to improve sexual function. There you go. Further research on the relationship between vibrator use and sexual health is warranted. So this study was a very interesting study from 2009. Now, what I want to show you here is, let's just see, do sex toys actually make women satisfied? I mean, if 52% of women are actually using sex toys, or vibrators in this case, then is it helpful? And this was a study that was done, it was published in January of 2024, called Do Sex Toys Make Me Satisfied? The Use of Sex Toys in Denmark, Norway, Sweden, Finland, France, and the UK. And we can look at this article online, but I cannot download it into a PDF, unfortunately, to make it bigger. However, let's take a look. Sex toys are easily accessible in many countries in the Western world. Yet, cross-country studies on sex toy ownership and use and their association with relationship, sex, and life satisfaction are rare. Using this cross-country convenience sample of 11,944 respondents from 6 European countries, we investigated the rate and factors linked to sex toy ownership and use, and their associations with sexual relationship and life satisfaction. And then the data was collected in May and June of 2022. Through a market research software platform. Participants received an email inviting them to the study, and they found that more than half of the respondents, similar to the last study, 52% in the last study, more than half of the respondents owned or had owned a sex toy, with the most common sex toys owned being dildos and vibrators. Interesting. Followed by handcuffs, penis rings, and anal sex toys. Just a little additional information there. Across countries, the majority of sex toy owners reported using these either alone or with a steady partner. And that's interesting, the word steady partner, right? They didn't say dating partners, they said steady partner. And that was 55 to 65%. And a minority with casual sex partners, which was 10 to 15%. So that kind of tells us right there, there's a little bit of a stigma, right? I mean, meaning if they're only 10% are bringing vibrators into their partnered sex, then that's what it tells me, that there's some stigma there about introducing the vibrator, as if the vibrator is going to somehow be like a third person in the room, right? So controlling for socio-demographics, parental status, sexual orientation, number of sex partners, and relationship status and length, we found that sex toy ownership and use were significantly associated with higher sexual and life satisfaction. I mean, wow, right? So get yourself some sex toys. Seriously. Like that sex toys were significantly associated with higher sexual and life satisfaction. Now, what I want to tell you about that when it says significantly associated, what significantly associated means in research is that it was less than a point, p value of 0.005, and significant clinic, when it's significant, statistically significant, it means it wasn't by chance, that it wasn't just a random thing, that it's statistically significant, then it was the result of it, that played a role in the satisfaction. While higher relationship satisfaction was only significantly associated with currently owning a sex toy, but not number of sex toys, and frequency of use with a partner, but not alone. Let me read that part again. Higher relationship satisfaction was only significantly associated with currently owning a sex toy, meaning not in the past. You had to have one currently in order to get one. I said, I'm not promoting any of them. I just had a woman last night, I was at a dinner party last night, and when I say that I'm a clinical sexologist and orgasmologist, she says, oh, I just bought this new sex toy. I forget the name of it and what it was, but this is just what happens at dinner party, being a clinical sexologist and orgasmologist is week. I had one friend that actually showed me 5 different ones that she bought. She spent like $500 from this company and bought, she said, let me show you my vibrator collection. And they were different colors and they were 5 different types of vibrators. So going back to this comment, while higher relationship satisfaction was only significantly associated with currently owning a sex toy, didn't matter how many you had, you could have one, and frequency of use with a partner, there's another reason it was significantly associated in use with a partner, not alone. That is a key reason. You could give a copy of the study to your partner and pull it up. Do sex toys make me satisfied? And say, Dr. Mulvehill had said that if I own a sex toy and I use it during partnered sex, we are going to have higher relationship satisfaction. I mean, what better use? What better reason than having research that says you own one, you use it during partnered sex, you have a higher chance of having relationship satisfaction. Okay. And they didn't find anything different across the countries. It was consistent. Now, whether Denmark, Norway, Sweden, Finland, France, and the UK have a more permissive lifestyle, I mean, they're part of the Western culture, right? So chances are that this would correlate over to the United States or to other countries in the Western world, at least, as well. I mean, I don't even think you can buy sex toys in some countries, but we're not going to get into that topic. Okay, so let me see if there's anything else in this interesting research article. We'll scroll down here a little bit. And it says here, similar to most topics related to sex, the use of sex toys has historically been somewhat controversial, including the concept of engaging in sexual activities for sexual pleasure. I mean, yeah. I mean, look, Kellogg's Corn Flakes was made as to deter masturbation. Honest to God, I was shocked. You can Google that yourself and you'll look and say, you can even ask AI and say, was Kellogg's Corn Flakes actually made to deter like masturbation? And you're going to find the answer was yes. So when you eat your Kellogg's Corn Flakes, just know that exists. Maybe put a banana in it or something to make it a little more interesting. Okay. Let's see. Sex toys today. I think we're gonna, unless there's a chart in here, we're gonna go on to the next one. Well, let's go to the next paper. So we've looked at the prevalence and characteristics of vibrator use. We're gonna close off this one. And I'm going to take you to some other studies now that will take this to another level. So, all right, here we go. We looked at the prevalence and characteristics. Let's look at some beliefs. I don't want to save the changes. This one here, this is about what are the beliefs. So we just saw that only 10% to only 10% of women were using vibrators in casual sexual encounters, while the majority of use for vibrators was used in steady partnerships. So now look, think about this. Steady partnerships in some respects means that the relationship is actually steady, right? That it's kind of working. So if you want a relationship to actually work and you're really into a guy or a girl, then bringing in a sex toy can actually help facilitate your the satisfaction of your relationship. It's just getting the boldness to use this orgasm. You know what this orgasm is? This orgasm is your voice. Women learning how to use their voice orgasm to speak up and say what they need to say. And with that, I'm going to have a sip of my tea. Okay, so this is about beliefs about women vibrator use. This is a study. I like to name the study because we're on 10 podcast channels, and a number of our Orgasm Hour live videos are they're all posted on 10 different channels, Podbean, Amazon. I don't know, there's 10 podcasts that we're on. And so if I read the journal title, if someone who's listening, they can actually go and look it up later if they would like. Okay, this is from the Journal of Sex and Marital Therapy. This was published in 2023, and it's titled Beliefs About Women's Vibrator Use, Results from a Nationally Representative Study, Probability Survey. Oops, let me share it with you. Sorry about that. I forgot to share it. So here we go. Because just because I see it doesn't mean you see it. Here we go. Now you can see it. I can make it bigger because this is a PDF now. So hopefully you can see this a little better. This was a same researcher who did the earlier one that we looked at in 2009. This is Deborah Herbenick. And I highlighted some things in this one. Let's get down to it. Okay, there's quite a few researchers in it. Okay, women's vibrator use is common in the United States, although little is known about beliefs about its use. They did surveys and interviews, informed the development of a 10-item scale, the beliefs about women's vibrator use scale. They developed a scale, which was administered nationally to adults 18 to 60 years old. I don't know why they didn't older than 60, but most women and men held high positive and low negative beliefs about women's vibrator use. Women with positive beliefs, here we go, reported higher female sexual function index scores, which relate to arousal, lubrication, orgasm, satisfaction, and pain, meaning less pain. So another reason to bring in a vibrator into partnership, women score higher. And this is like, of course, these are subjective, meaning they're answering the question of how they feel, but subjective responses also relate to higher satisfaction. I mean, we're kind of seeing a theme here that it relates to higher relationship satisfaction when these toys are in place, and that the majority of steady relationships have a sex toy. Didn't say they have a vibrator, but there's a sex toy in use in high satisfaction relationships with a steady partner. And it's a good reason, as I mentioned earlier, to introduce one into a casual relationship. If this is a partner, well, number one, if it's a partner you're having a casual sex with and you want to have an orgasm and you use vibrators, then bring it on, right? Hey, I'm going to bring my vibrator out and I'd like to have an orgasm too. It's really that simple. Like, because if we can use the voice orgasm, it's going to help you have a vaginal orgasm too, or a breast orgasm, or a non-genitally stimulated orgasm. There are many different types of orgasm, and women can have hypnotic induction orgasms with their clothes fully on. Yes, we have these beautiful, wonderful benefits of being a woman, of our orgasmic ability that gets quieted in our society. And that's part of why we're here, is to bring the science to you. Okay, let's see if there's something else interesting in here. We said we know that it's common, how they did the study, how they gathered all these people, to do this study. I want to see if there's a chart in here. Let's see. Oh, sometimes these charts are sideways, which doesn't help us at all. The main survey measures. Let's go to the results. Analysis. I thought about one time even reading a study as one, like as a podcast, is actually just to read and interpret a study. So this one is the participant demographics. Okay, so who took this study? Interestingly, male and female. So we had what percentage of males? I think it's interesting that it was male and female that took this study. And it's kind of too much information in all of here, so we're not going to go into this. Okay, I think we got what we need from this one with the beliefs. Okay, let's turn it this way. Hold on. I'm going to positive beliefs. Okay, here we go. Makes it easier for a woman to have an orgasm. Can enhance a woman's sexual relationship with her partner. Helps women to become more sexually independent. Can take the pressure off a woman's orgasm to give her orgasm. And you can see that there's a mean score and a standard deviation. And some of these, I don't think anything was statistically, there's a couple here that have higher numbers of results, but these were some belief items. It's a healthy part of many women's sex lives. These were the questions that they had asked them. Can make sex with a partner more exciting. And it really can. I mean, when I started with the Reddit thread, with what started this particular podcast about the comment of how do I convince my boyfriend to let me use a vibrator? How can I come without one? Like, he doesn't want her using a vibrator during sex. And we just already are finding out that it actually enhances your sex life to use a vibrator during sex. And I would say, since 50% of the vibrator users are in a steady partnership, more than 50, then it facilitates steady partnership. So, and sometimes the synthesis of this research, we don't see it until we look at a number of different papers, which is why bringing this research to you. And I mean, I have realizations sometimes as I'm presenting this to you of like what I just shared. Okay, so makes woman, okay, so the negative, let's look at the negative beliefs. Negative beliefs: makes women too dependent on them for pleasure, is embarrassing for women, is something that only women who are lonely do. Isn't this interesting? These are some of the comments. Is intimidating to women's partners. So, and it looks like, if you look at this, women, these negative scales here were made by women. So women end up being the ones who have these comments. Let's see. Let's just see here. The interaction between vibrator use and vibrator beliefs was significant for several female sexual function index subscales, including sexual arousal, lubrication, orgasm satisfaction, and reducing pain. A significant interaction, vibrator use and beliefs about women's vibrator use, which I just read the beliefs, right? Indicates that vibrator beliefs moderate the relationship between vibrator use and sexual function scores, such that the relation between vibrator use and sexual function varies on the basis of whether the participant endorses positive or negative beliefs about the vibrators. So if a partner has negative beliefs, like this woman whose boyfriend won't let her or doesn't want her bringing a vibrator into the bedroom, and subsequently she has been faking orgasm, those negative beliefs are influencing the relationship. But obviously, the fact that she went and posted this comment on a women's becoming orgasmic thread with 50,000 people, tells me that it didn't go away, that the faking orgasm didn't solve the problem. It didn't solve her orgasm problem. It might have helped his ego, but her orgasm is saying, no, 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 that's not going to work. We need to get this figured out. So orgasm requires that. Like orgasm will bring out the best in you. And the power in you too. I mean, I have spoken with women who, when they have learned how to orgasm, and I'm in this group as well with my marriage. When I was able to access orgasm, there's a level of sexual confidence and there's a level of personal empowerment that embodies us. And I've talked to women, one woman in particular, who her husband had said, oh, I couldn't get her off for like 15 years. And when she learned how to orgasm, not with a vibrator, she learned how to orgasm with cannabis. And when she got her access to her orgasm, she realized that she was in an abusive relationship and she ended her marriage. So yeah, there's power in orgasm, and it's a separate topic, but it's related. Okay, so to further understand the nature of the relationship between the variables, the vibrator use and the vibrator beliefs, they plotted it against these domains of orgasm, lubrication. Here we go. Participants with positive beliefs about women's vibrators use tended to have lower scores on the female sexual function index. However, the direction of the relationship, here we go. This is a really interesting one. But let's finish reading that sentence. The directions of the relationship changed for the participants who reported recent vibrator use. So if we talked about this earlier, if they had one, but they've had one in the past, this makes me realize I need to get a new one myself. I can't find the charger. Like, I don't know where the charger, maybe I left it in the US. I don't know where it is, but I got to get myself a new vibrator too. So if you have a vibrator and you use it, then you're more likely to score positively on the scores related to desire, arousal, lubrication, orgasm, satisfaction, reduced pain, and the full scale. And here you can see these scores: women's vibrator use, positive beliefs about women's vibrator use, and the female sexual function index scores. So let's go to orgasm, vibrator use, 0.02. You know what that means? That's statistically significant because it's less than 0.05. So here, these other ones, 0.01, if the vibrator beliefs were positive, then their vibrator use, there's a star here, less than 0.05. So the p-value, when it's less than 0.05, there's a correlation, a statistically significant correlation. Okay, so it doesn't affect all of them, because if you look at the full scale vibrator use, it's 0.09. So here, pain, vibrator use, in this case, it didn't help with vibrator use. Satisfaction was not statistically significant with vibrator use. Orgasm was statistically significant with vibrator use. Lubrication, it didn't impact lubrication. It did impact arousal, which makes sense because arousal often leads in our sexual response model. Arousal leads to orgasm, meaning stimulating the clitoris, genital stimulation in the Masters and Johnson sexual response model says that a woman will orgasm. The one caveat to the Masters and Johnson model is that it implicitly assumes that a woman is going to transition into an altered state of consciousness. So that is something that I'm working on with orgasm learning and learning how to orgasm. I have a paper that's going to come out. It's in peer review currently, and when that comes out, we'll talk about that. Okay, so let's go on to the next study. This study is women's experiences with genital touching, sexual pleasure, and orgasm. Let me make this a little bigger for you. From a US population sample of women. This one was from age 18 to 94, because the last study only studied to age 60. Like after 60, what do they think? We just like drop off? Like 60 is No, they found actually in some studies, women have more sexual satisfaction as they get older. So this is the same woman, Debbie Herbenick. This study was published in 2018. And let's take a look at the abstract. The study's purpose was to assess in the US probability sample of women experiences related to orgasm, sexual pleasure, and genital touching. In June 2015, 1,055 women ages 18 to 94 from a nationally representative sample completed a confidential internet-based survey. While 18.4% of women reported that intercourse alone was sufficient for orgasm, 36.6% reported clitoral stimulation was necessary for orgasm during intercourse. That hopefully is not surprising to men or women. Now, I will tell you in porn, that is not typically the case. In porn, it makes it look like a woman is orgasming through penetration alone. But here you can see that 36% of women, the largest group of women, reported that they needed clitoral stimulation during intercourse to orgasm. And an additional 36% indicated that while clitoral stimulation was not needed, their orgasms felt better if their clitoris is stimulated during intercourse. So when we go back to the early question, the early conversation we had in this podcast, why would a partner want to introduce a vibrator into partnered sex? Because it enhances the sexual experience for the woman. That's why. And it also enhances the relationship satisfaction. They had higher relationship satisfaction. We saw that in another study, that of steady partners, the relationship satisfaction was higher when a vibrator was being, a sex toy in this one was being used. So it's a good reason to, and I'm not promoting any particular one, but to get one, at least one, and use it regularly. Okay, women reported diverse preferences for genital touch location, pressure, shape, and pattern. Clinical, therapeutic, and educational implications are discussed. So let's just see if there's anything interesting in here. I think this first sentence is really interesting. For more than a century, scientists have attempted to understand and describe women's experiences with sexual pleasure and orgasm, and occasionally classify types of orgasm. Do you know that it made a huge deal? We see height. If you see here, height written in 1976. Cher Height, let me highlight it over here. Cher Height published the Height Report in 1976, and that raised high holy hell. And she ended up leaving the country like in the early 90s. She has unfortunately died. However, Cher Height did a study of over, I think, 3,000 women across the United States, a mail-in study. And I'll tell you what the main finding was, that women could orgasm by themselves. No problem. The problem was with partnered sex. And that raised high holy hell. In fact, it landed it in the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders that if a woman, after this, in like 1980, I don't know, DSM-3, if a woman couldn't orgasm during intercourse alone, that some women had a pathological condition. Can you believe that? And we're still dealing with that today. It's still in the DSM-5 TR that, women can orgasm through intercourse, and that it's typically not the way most women orgasm. I'm not sure if they say it's no longer a pathological condition, but Freud did us injustice back in the early 1900s, saying that a clitoral orgasm was immature, is what he said, and that a woman needed to transfer her orgasm to her vagina. Why would she need to do that? Probably for men, right? For male satisfaction. There's a couple things about Freud. I'm working on my book, Excavate London, and I have a whole chapter that's going to be dedicated to the Freud Museum and uncovering some of these things. So I'm on that chapter now. It's chapter 6. So that's something you can keep an eye open on in the future. So, all right, let's get back. So yeah, Cher Height made high holy hell about bringing it to the forefront that most women could orgasm by themselves. In fact, only 10 to 15% don't orgasm at all. 10 to 15% of women have never had an orgasm. And that really number, unfortunately, hasn't changed much over the last century. Most women can orgasm by themselves. The biggest problem with orgasm is with partners. And if part of the problem is that partners are expecting women to orgasm vaginally, or as one woman said recently, he puts the lube on and starts jackhammering away. Does that sound like a woman who's going to be orgasming? Probably not. So partners, ask your partner, the partners with the partners, whether it's the woman of the partner or the man who's going to be using a vibrator, or the men who have, if you have a penis and you want to supply, I was going to say, if you want to support your partner, you could say, how do you like to orgasm? How would you like to have sex today? Would you like penetration? Would you not like penetration? And stop along the way. This isn't like a performance, like you're not in the Olympics when you have sex. You can stop and say, hey, you know what? My thinking is just running wild and I need to stop for a minute. Can we just stop for a minute and just let me get recentered? You have permission to do that, to stop. I didn't learn about that until much later in my life, that we had permission to stop. And you can always start, like set the container for your sex practice, your sexual experience, and say, today I'm noticing that I've been getting sidetracked, and I realize I'm getting sidetracked on this topic. I notice I'm getting sidetracked and I need to stop for a minute, or what, let me get my vibrator because, I would just like a little more pleasure, and be comfortable saying that. Really, get comfortable saying that. Use your mouth orgasm, your voice. Okay, so let's get back and see if there's anything else interesting here. This woman is with Indiana University. Okay, I don't think we're going to go through. There's a couple more I want to share with you, but we're going to stop this one. Okay, next one. Okay, this one is getting a little more interesting. This is a research article published by Devin Hensel, a gentleman. It was by the Oh My God Yes research group. I'm not sure if I'm trusting that this is a peer-reviewed article. Yes, it was reviewed, accepted, published in 2021. It's titled Women's Techniques for Making Vaginal Penetration More Pleasurable. Results from a nationally representative study of adult women in the United States. So the abstract is like our mini executive summary for those of you that read business plans. The abstract will kind of give us the highlights. The study purpose was to assess in a U.S. probability. Let me make it bigger. There we go. So you can see it maybe a little better. Okay. The study purpose was to assess in a U.S. probability sample of women the specific ways women have discovered to make vaginal penetration more pleasurable. Though qualitative pilot research with women that informed the development of the survey instrument used in this study, through it, we identified 4 previously unnamed but distinct techniques women use to make vaginal penetration more pleasurable. Angling, rocking, shallowing, and pairing. This study defines each technique and describes its prevalence among U.S. adult women. Weighted frequencies were drawn from the second Oh My God Yes Pleasure Report, a cross-sectional online national probability survey of 3,017 American women aged 18 to 93 sexual experiences and discoveries. Participants were recruited via this ICIS knowledge panel. Data suggest that 87.5% of women made vaginal penetration more pleasurable using angling, which is rotating, raising, or lowering the pelvic hips during penetration to adjust where inside the vagina the toy or penis rubs and what it feels like. Approximately 76% of women made vaginal penetration more pleasurable using rocking. Okay, rocking. Let's see, where am I here? 76% of made, okay, by rocking. The base of the penis or sex toy rubbing against the clitoris constantly during penetration by staying all the way inside the vagina rather than thrusting in and out. So remember I said earlier about the woman who shared, she shared on a Reddit thread, oh yeah, my boyfriend put the lube on and started jackhammering away. Well, here we just are reading that rocking, the base of the penis or sex toy rubbing against the clitoris constantly during penetration by staying all the way inside the vagina rather than thrusting in and out. So it's good to know for men and women to know. About 84% of women make vaginal penetration more pleasurable using shallowing. Penetrative touch just inside the entrance of the vagina, not on the outside, but also not deep inside with a fingertip, sex toy, penis tip, tongue, or lips. Kind of like the Goldilocks syndrome, like you got to just find the right way, the right level of comfort. Finally, 69% of 0.7% of women orgasm more often, making vaginal penetration more pleasurable using pairing. When a woman herself, solar pairing, or her partner pairing, reaches down to stimulate her clitoris with a finger or sex toy, and a vibrator is a sex toy, at the same time as her vagina is being penetrated. So there you go, ladies and gentlemen who are with women who have clitorises, that using a sex toy, using a vibrator will make the experience more pleasurable for her. That is actually an advantage to the gentleman, because you can have her pleasure, right? You can experience her orgasm. And in studies by orgasmic meditation, they showed that the brain waves of the man and the woman align after, I think it was 10 minutes of a man touching a woman's clitoris. The brain actually connects. They have similar brain waves. So taking this to sex, my hypothesis is that the partner benefits from their partner's orgasm through similar brain waves, through experiencing the pleasure that she's experiencing. So I invite you to men and women, to open your minds to inviting a sex toy into your partnership if you don't have one already. Okay, so this data provides techniques that are at women's disposal to make penetration more pleasurable, which can enable women to better identify their own preferences, right? Communicate about them and advocate for their sexual pleasure. So that is another very important piece of information, is women advocating for their own pleasure. Again, remember the study that I've shared that is called The Determinants of Female Orgasm, where the authors of the study, Osmo Kontula and Meatenden, were trying to figure out, why are women more focused on their partner's pleasure than their own? Because they're not using their orgasm voice. They're not speaking up for themselves. So using your orgasm voice so that you can have other types of orgasm, because your voice from your orgasm voice of like, hey, I want to use a vibrator today, or hey, like, let's stop for a minute, or whatever it is. Okay, so this is the next study. I can't believe we're already at 53 minutes. It's amazing how fast it's like this time goes for me. Okay, let's see. It's this one. Okay, so this study, we have 3 studies to go through yet. So I'll see if I can go with them relatively quickly. Genital vibration for sexual function and enhancement. And this is a review of the evidence. This is a study that was published in 2018. And let's go to the abstract. Vibration as provided by a genital vibrator is commonly regarded as a tool to enhance sexual pleasure, and in modern day society falls under the category of a sex toy. However, the vibrator was not originally intended as a toy, and its benefits reach far beyond that of a plaything. This article is a narrative review of the current evidence regarding the use of vibratory stimulation for the treatment of sexual dysfunction and/or sexual and/or relationship enhancement. The literature indicates that vibratory stimulation has evidence-based support for the treatment of erectile dysfunction, ejaculatory dysfunction, and anorgasmia. And anorgasmia is when a man or woman has never experienced an orgasm. Vibrator stimulation is positively correlated with increased sexual desire and overall sexual function. It has also shown benefit for sexual arousal difficulties and pelvic floor dysfunction. Though definitive evidence is lacking, genital vibration is a potential treatment for sexual dysfunction related to a wide variety of sexual health concerns in both men and women. So the vibrator can actually, or sex toys can benefit men too. And again, this is now an invitation for men to invite a toy into the bedroom, or the partner to invite. It doesn't always have to just be the woman. In fact, gentlemen, you can buy a vibrator for your partner, for your gal, and say, hey, I got you a toy, right? And this isn't, you have to be careful here, because it's not about pressuring her to orgasm. Last week we talked about the pressure to have orgasm, how some relationships, which I call the relationship the third. So we've got the man and the woman, or the same sex, the two partners, the two women, and they're going to make orgasm a goal for her. That is not going to work. I cannot highlight that enough. And if you want to go look, I have a whole show about that from last week, about taking the pressure off orgasm. Because if unconsciously you're doing it to put a feather in your own cap, meaning I can make her orgasm, you can't make her. I mean, you can create conditions that can stimulate the arousal and stimulate her, create safety for her, but you can't make her have an orgasm. So that's why it's important for you to know, how do I create the conditions of safety in this relationship so that her orgasm can emerge? That's what we're working on. Okay, so let's take a look at the next study. This is an abstract, World Meeting on Sexual Medicine, the use of vibrator. I don't think we're going to look at this one. We have one more here. Okay. This one is women's vibrator use in sexual partnerships. And this one is the result. This is from 2014. So this is the third study that we're looking at from this particular researcher, Deborah Herbenek. And she has a large research team at Indiana University, the Kinsey Institute of Research on Sex, Gender, and Reproduction in Bloomington, Indiana. And let's take a look at what this research had to say. Okay, so little is known about women's use of vibrators within sexual partnerships. Data were collected from a population-based cross-sectional study of 2,056 women. Actually, we did look at this one already, because they were 18 to 60 years old. And I remembered 60. I was like, 60? What do you mean 60? I'm 64. Like, you stopped at 60? So the next research that she did went up to 94. So I kind of feel like we have looked at all of the research. We're at 2 minutes before closing this this particular orgasm hour on the benefits of vibrators, how to introduce vibrators into your partnership, how using a vibrator and having a vibrator and using it regularly improves your sexual functioning. And for partnerships in steady relationships, that there's higher sexual satisfaction if they use a sex toy. And in casual relationships, if you want to improve your relationship and you want to improve your partner's satisfaction or your own, is to use your voice orgasm and say, hey, I'd like to introduce a vibrator into our relationship. Let's give it a try. And for women who are still struggling with any thoughts of being broken or feeling inadequate, know that you're not alone. I was there for a long time myself, in that same suppressed place, and you can have it. There's orgasm learning pathways. I have a paper coming out. It's in peer review right now on different pathways on how to enter an absorbed state of consciousness, because the orgasm learning pathways are about knowing how to enter an absorbed state of consciousness. We're so focused on the vibration. If we can't get out of our cognitive thinking brain, then we'll have an orgasm, but chances are it's not going to be pleasurable. So learning how to be in an absorbed state of consciousness, learning how to introduce fantasy. Cannabis is an orgasm learning pathway or tool. We wouldn't try to put a picture on a wall or hammer in a nail without a hammer. Like, why have sex and without the things that enhance it? If we know a partner enhances our sex, then get a partner. If we know that vibrators enhance our sex, then introduce your vibrator. All right, well, I'm Dr. Suzanne Mulvehill, and here with you, about to close on the Orgasm Hour today on vibrator use. Check out our website at femaleorgasmresearch.org and femaleorgasmtraining.com. We're about to launch on September 15th. Dr. Janester Wilson-King and I will be launching a 12-week program called Becoming Orgasmic with Medical Cannabis, and inviting, it looked like we're going to have about 15 women for that first group to launch this program. And yeah, that's all for today. So thanks for watching at Dr. Suzanne Mulvehill. Ciao for now.